It was another dog. Hello fellow Earthlings, it's Libs, and today I'm going to be doing my March reading wrap-up. I read 5 books this month, which for me is a lot. So I'm happy with that. I discovered the joy of audiobooks and that has made everything so much easier. So I have my toxic drink of Powerade and whiskey, and let's crack on into it. So the first book is one that I've been reading most of the year so far, but I finally finished it in March, and that is just that is film noir. This book kind of just tells you, is a non-fiction, it tells you a lot of the history of film noir, and it lists 50 of the best film noir films that you can watch if film noir is something you are interested in, and it also has some of the information about those films. And I mean, one, it's just like an extremely pretty book full of pictures. It would make a fantastic coffee table book for anyone who enjoys just film. Would probably really enjoy this, or anyone studying film would probably enjoy this. It's not like the most academic text of all time, but it's a good one to go to if this is something you're interested in. I think I gave it 4 stars because, again, it's not the most academic text, but it's really, really good. And I think if you're writing about any Mildred Pierce, love it, any film noirs, then having something like this as a referencing point, just to mention other films in relation to whatever film you're writing about, is really, really cool. I want to reread this already. I just finished it. The second book I read for the Buzzword Reading Challenge, and that is Swing Time by Zadie Smith. This follows our unnamed protagonist through her life. It plays with time a lot. It follows her life as she's a child, taking dance classes and a friendship she had developed with one of the girls in her class who is a brilliant dancer. And then it goes into her in later years as an adult, working as an assistant for a pop star. And I have mixed feelings about this book. This is my second Zadie Smith book. I'm not really sure if I'm going to pick up a third. I shall see if any others really speak to me. I think I gave this 3.5 stars because there are bits of this that are fantastic. I really, really like the themes that I explored in this text. I enjoyed the short chapters. I enjoyed the different perspectives on issues that were referenced. I mean, it
2 hours later.
I agree with the back. It has brilliant things to say about race, class, and gender, and that is true. It just, you can't really connect to the characters. There's just so much jumping around in time that it's just really, really difficult to know exactly where you're meant to be in the story. And you know, particularly with the chapters where our main character is a child, I didn't know how old she was meant to be for a large chunk of this book. So I think thematically it's absolutely brilliant, but I just couldn't connect to it in any real way, which is a shame because it's a very interesting book. I just can't say I would recommend it to everyone. I think if you're already a Zadie Smith fan, then you might really enjoy this, but if not, it depends on how interested you are in reading this. Next, I finally read Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I have the film tie-in edition, which I normally don't like, but this is a hardcover and you can always just take off this little flap and then you have that, which is brilliant. I'd never actually read Little Women before, which seems ridiculous considering how often I talk about it. I'm just obsessed with the 2019 film. I'm even more obsessed with it after reading this book. I assume everyone knows what Little Women's about, so I won't go into it too much. But I really enjoyed seeing kind of the differences with like the book and the film, and how like the book focuses more on like moral lessons and what, you know, young girls could like learn from reading a story like this, versus the films that tend to focus a lot more on kind of what is happening with the characters. Again, I really enjoyed Greta Gerwig's interpretation, particularly because I feel like she explored some elements of this book that some of the other films didn't explore as deeply, or they kind of only just touched on, or didn't seem to understand as much. Particularly the like dynamics between Jo and Amy. I really like how the film portrayed it and kind of explained Amy's point of view the best out of all of the adaptations. And this book was brilliant. I think if you've only seen the films and never read the book, it's worthwhile. It's still very different, and I loved it. It's very sweet and charming. I gave it 4 stars. Then I borrowed an audiobook from the library, and that is a non-fiction that's called Queens of the Crusades by Alison Weir. This, I know it's an audiobook, so you can't really call it like a chunky book, but you felt it. It was about like a 19-hour audiobook. It was huge. I really, really enjoy Alison Weir. I think listening to it as audiobooks is better than physically reading it, just because sometimes her books can feel very dense, and listening to it just makes it a little bit easier. This book follows the queens of Henry II, Richard I, John, Henry III, and Edward I. 3 of them are called Eleanor, so it gets a little bit confusing, but they change like the way it's pronounced for each one so that you can kind of wrap your head around it a bit better. I really enjoyed this. Obviously, it was a very weird time in history, and a lot of things that are happening are quite sad, but I think the book did a really good job of exploring the good things that these people did as well as the bad things, and kind of gives a very balanced account of who they were as people. So I really, really enjoyed it. It's not going to be a book for everyone, but I think if you are interested in the Plantagenets, understanding like their early days is probably a really good way to get a better grasp of who they were as a family. So I'd really recommend it. I think I gave it 4 stars. I give everything 4 stars. And lastly, I read Zami, A New Spelling of My Name by Audre Lorde. This is, she calls it a biomythography. I'm never going to say that with conviction. This is essentially the story of her as a child and as a young adult. And it is beautifully written. Audre Lorde is a master of the English language. I really, really enjoyed this. It is quite sad, and I wouldn't recommend it for everyone just because it does delve on some quite dark topics and things that might trigger some people. So I think just look up the content warnings if you're interested in reading this, just to see if it would be appropriate for you. But I really enjoyed it. I think Audre Lorde has this perfect balance of really, really poetic writing and then these really blunt statements that will like punch you in the gut. You'll be reading about something and everything's sounding lovely, and then the chapter will end with her saying, and then I didn't know this person would be dead 6 months later or something, and it hits you like a bullet train. I really enjoyed this. I don't know what I can really say about it. You know, it's kind of her memoir, so I don't want to comment too much on it, but I just loved how it was formatted and how it was written, so I ended up giving this 5 stars. I thought it was brilliant. And those are the books that I've read in March. Let me know what you read in the comments below, and I will see you next time. Bye.